So this morning we're gonna talk about the fear of the Lord, okay? And it's going to be a little unconventional in terms of some of the things that you have heard before, and then I'm going to share a little. I guess you could say, what's the word I'm looking for? Not a testimonial. What do you do when you share your story? Is that what it is? Okay, testimonial. That's fairly recent for me, so it may cause you to change the way you think about me for the past 9 years, but you know what? We'll live with it. I feel like God's led me down this, so let's turn over in our Bibles to Proverbs 9:10. I'm going to start out there. So Proverbs 9:10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. Very short verse, very powerful verse. As a husband and a father and a leader of a household, I take this very serious. For me, when it says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, it's the beginning of wisdom. Meaning that if you don't fear the Lord, you don't even have wisdom yet. You have begun nothing, right? So this has weighed very heavily on me for about the past year. Fear of the Lord. We always hear different things. You know, we hear fear as in a frightened state. We hear fear as in a respect state. And so I looked at the Hebrew and all of the different contexts. And please understand, I work at Criswell College, which is it's a seminary, a Baptist institution seminary. And I heard a lesson from an Old Testament professor who's been doing this for 30 years. And they literally spend half of their coursework learning Hebrew, learning Arabic. And so I don't know how many of you have gotten into trying to learn the origin of words to then ascertain what is that actually saying instead of just relying on the translation that we have. But in this particular case, I did that a little bit, which was prompted by a chapel service that I sat in on at school. And so there's quite a few versions of fear. Pardon me. Our English language, when you compare in the Hebrew, there are not equivalent words. In other words, our words fall short of describing what it is that they're saying. We don't have a word-for-word comparison. So our language is inadequate. They can use fear, and that can have 4 different meanings based upon the context and then where it is in the sentence and whether or not it's a noun or a verb. That confuses me, I'll be the first to tell you, but I did do research on this. And there is many of the things that we have heard about before. The trembling and shaking, when we see people that come into the presence of God and we see them fall on their knees and we see them tremble and we see them shake, or we read of it, we know, and obviously that is a version of fear. That is a fear overtaking you. And then we've also talked about the fear of your Father here on earth, and that we mix that into the equation. That respect, that the way that you look up to them, that admiration. So you have a combination, and I think this is true of us as earthly fathers. Certainly, if Cassandra says something to the kids, they will mind her. It may take, more than one time. I'm telling on them right in the middle of everybody, so I'm sure they're going to appreciate that. But when Daddy comes in and says, do that, it's completely different. The reaction is quicker. All I have to do is get a stern voice, and I get a reaction. And why is that? A lot of it is the fear. You know, they know their dad's not going to kill them, but they know I will hurt them. I mean, that's what we do. That's what the dad's role is to back up, support the mom, and make sure that they learn to obey when they're spoken to. That would be more of the yara. I'm not real sure how the pronunciations go, but the trembling and shaking, that would be pahad, which is also used. But in this particular instance, where it says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, you have yara, which is the reverence, and then you have yira, which is the feminine tense of that. And this is why I say there sometimes are not words that are a one-to-one relationship to get you to understand what it is that this passage is talking about because of the complexity of the Hebrew language. When we look at our modern day English, we don't have a one-to-one translation. There's just simply no way to do it. So I have a thought process that I think falls in line with this, and I'm not going to sit here this morning and say that this is the biblical understanding that you need to have, but I will invite you to look into it as I have and see what you come up with. So the word yira means to flow out of the gut. To flow out of the gut. So a fear that flows out of the gut. And so I've read many commentaries on this and have struggled with the understanding. What does that mean? You know, flow out of the gut. Does that mean flow out of my gut? Does it mean flow out? Well, in this particular case, it is the flowing of God's gut. So what flows out of God? That is the beginning of fear and wisdom. The fear is the beginning of the wisdom. And so that means that we have an understanding of the essence of God. We have an understanding of the essence of God, everything that flows from Him. And so I want to submit to you a sentence more that to me exemplifies this, that I have heard. This is not my own, by the way. This is something that I borrowed. But I do believe it helps to give us perspective as we walk through this life and check ourselves and find out, are we walking the way that we need to walk? And then from there, what do we do about it? So for me, defined simply, and this is something that I've been thinking about over and over, fear of the Lord is a conscious awareness of and serious attention to God's presence and the purposes of God. I'm going to say that again. Conscious awareness of and serious attention to God's presence and the purposes of God. So how is that different? How is that different? To me, the difference is in the word conscious awareness of, meaning that we are always consciously aware. Always. So that when we're thinking about God our Father, which needs to be every day, all the time, because we have a conscious awareness of Him. So it's not an unconscious awareness of us breathing in air, an involuntary process. This is a conscious awareness. I'm using my mind. I'm consciously aware of God's presence and God's power. And when you're consciously aware of something, it then changes your actions. If your wife makes you consciously aware of the fact that you leave doors to your kitchen cabinets open every time you open them and you don't close them all the way, it enters into your mind and you take that into consideration. That's not from personal experience. Just kidding, it is. So that's a conscious awareness that every single time I open up a cabinet or a drawer, I am very likely to leave it partially open, to then get followed up by my wife to finish the job, right? That's a conscious awareness of mine. Many times I will go, I'll open it up, I'll get what I need to get, and I'll take a step and then go, oh yeah. Turn around and close it. Being consciously aware of my wife's needs and desires. That's conscious awareness. Unconsciously, if I am not aware, I did it on vacation with Heidi and Tim. I left 3 open side by side. Just walked off. Didn't exist. Okay? That's unaware, and that is not what we're talking about. How many of us wake up every single day consciously aware of our Creator in our lives and what that means for us? How many of us wake up every day and give our day to God and then finish it every hour? Go back and talk to Him every 10 minutes. This conscious awareness applies that we are in constant commune with our Father. Guys, we have multiple ways to communicate with God. We have Scripture. We have prayer. We can meditate on His Word, on things that we've read before. He is always there. God is faithful. You know who's not faithful? Us. We are the not faithful people. God is faithful. The reason I talk about this, fear of the Lord, and what that means, if you look at it into context, I think if we have an understanding of that, a base understanding, I think that changes our lives. I think it changes our lives in the moment, and I think it changes us from here on out. Does that mean that we will not stumble? No, absolutely not. What it does mean is our trajectory is completely different because we're focused, okay? I know I'm heading this way. I'm not looking at something over there. I'm not looking at something over there. I'm coming from here and I'm going to there because I am consciously aware. Do you get an idea of what I'm talking about? Are we consciously aware? Do we involve God in everything from small to as big as it gets? Do we take that to the Father? Do we act like Gideon, like we talked about in Bible class this morning? Do we ask too much for God's intervention? God has given us dominion over everything. All we have to be is in His grip, in His will. Do you think that we're consciously aware that we're going to walk outside of God's path if we are waking up and we're staying consciously aware of the presence and the power of God? Do you think that He is going to allow us to walk outside of His will? I do not think so. I submit that this world and everything in it that we were given dominion to, I think that we have complete power. God gave us self-will to do whatever we want, okay? Some of those are good things. Some of those are bad things. Some of us have done some bad things. Some of us have done some really good things. God permits it all. But if we're trying to be consciously aware and live in the grip of God, and we're working hard to do that, and we take a step that is not something that He wants us to do, He'll put that right there, block, stop it. So we don't have to worry about always being in God's will if we are consciously aware of God's presence, because it happens automatically. We are keeping God in our lives. We are in communion with Him. There's an intimacy unlike any other, and we are going to have a desire to walk with Him. And there are so many things we can do that fall within the will of God. How many of you have different jobs? Are we all engineers in here? Are we all teachers? No. Did God call you all specifically to the exact job that you're doing right now? Did some of you just fall into what you do like I did and then learn to love it, and now I feel like God has called me to be there? Do you get the point I'm making? We can bring glory to God in all that we do. You can be a banker, you can be an auto mechanic, you can be anything. We can still go out and speak the good news. Doesn't matter who you are. We're all preachers. It's like I've said before. We are all preachers. It does not matter what we do. We don't have to be a preacher to be within God's will. We share the message wherever we go. Many times people are in environments. Chris Knight shared many stories with me working with rough guys in the elevator contracting business. He gets more opportunities to share the love of the Lord with just real rough guys. Do you think he needs to be there for that reason? Absolutely. Did God necessarily call him to that 20 years ago or however long it's been? I don't know. Maybe he did. But do you get what I'm saying? Whatever we do, God can fold, mold, mix, create to work out for the good in the end. Now, in order to begin wisdom with fear of the Lord, we have to have a moment. We have to have a moment. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Y'all know what kind of moment I'm talking about? This is a moment that comes to you and changes your life like that. Most of us have been baptized. Most of us have received the Holy Spirit. If y'all will feel uncomfortable, y'all can just cover your eyes, but I'm going to ask you a question. I want a response. You don't have to look around, but I do want to see, especially given in light of Michael's sermon last week about the Holy Spirit and what we do, how we behave, how we worship. I want to get a gauge for who we are as Ovilla. How many of you have a time in your life where the Holy Spirit spoke to you, talked to you, showed you something that just evidenced in concrete and took away any disbelief or anything that you had had before? How many of us have had that kind of experience? Okay, so a good percentage. I don't know how you bring that on. I don't know how you request for that to come to you. But I am going to share with you what happened to me. And this is why I said y'all might be surprised at the last 10 years, but I'm a pretty honest guy. I tend to share what goes on in my life. And if anybody doesn't like it, then, well, I'm going to come here anyway, so they'll have to kick me out. I love it here. But I want to tell you a little bit about where I've been in my travel up until this point to give you a little hope and understanding in knowing that God is in control and that if we stay consciously aware of His presence and the purposes that He has and we try to fulfill those, life can be incredibly different. Life can be altering. And it doesn't mean that things aren't going to be hard or difficult, but what it does for sure mean is that your faith can be increased. I live with a person, and I know other people in my life that have been people of complete faith their entire life. Now, does that mean that they have never had a moment where they're angry with God or ever had a moment where they had a question about God and is He real? Is He working in my life? And the answer to that is, of course, they have had those moments as well. But these people, this is something that's been unraveled for me over the last year. Some people from a very young age, and I don't know, once I can unlock how to do this, I will be teaching it to every child I know, but I do not know how this works. Some people from a very young age have a faith that is so strong they cannot be shaken. These are the kind of young kids that don't fold into peer pressure. Normally, from what I've seen, both of their parents are full of faith. And I don't know what it is, but they are just immovable and unshakable. And even when things get bad, they know that God is there and they know He's going to work. Okay? Now, let me move on to myself. We've been going here a little over 10 years now. I've always had faith, but I have not had unshakable faith. I'll tell you that right now. I have not had unshakable faith. My faith has been shaken many times. And so when you're married to someone like that, you know, we talk about that, and we talk about faith and how it comes and what kinds of things lead to an increase of faith. And of course, you know, over the years of reading more and spending more time in prayer with God and then witnessing some of that with the birth of children and all of those things, obviously those are all great additions to secure your faith. But at the end of my mom's life, so in June, I experienced some things that I can't even begin to explain to y'all that brought me to where I am a man of 100% complete full faith. I have no question of my Creator, not a one. And that has been mind-blowing. It has been chilling. It's been eye-opening. Makes you insignificant. Makes some things not matter. Makes other things matter so much more. Then I began to have an appreciation for my brothers and sisters that have had faith like that all along. So now my duty is to get that faith instilled in my kids at a young age so that it carries with them. Those people that have faith that do not waver, when it gets difficult, they may cry for a day or two, but they're right back. They know God is in control. They know God works everything for the good. So I'll tell you, I'm going to sit up here and testify what happened to me. You can believe me, you cannot. There are people that witnessed, and I don't know, maybe at some point you'll get the chance to talk to them. My mom, in her final days, she didn't think she was dying. Still a lot to wrap our heads around. Very personal information to be sharing, but I just feel compelled to share it. And for us as a human in our flesh, I don't know where that come from. Whether that she really believed that or she was trying to stay strong for us, I don't really know what that was. But I was on the phone with my wife, telling her, and I said, I don't even remember the exact words that I said, but I said something. And then me and my mom, this is before she had kind of lost control of her speech. But it was so amazing because she said something about basically letting me know that she was aware of the intensity of the situation, but she wanted me to calm down. So I got off the phone with Cassandra right away, and I knew it's time to have a come to Jesus talk with Mama, right? So I have a talk, and I'm sitting there with her. She's literally, on her deathbed. And I asked her, I said, Mom, do you know, because you're saying things that lead us to think that you are not, that you're not ready to go, that you think you're going to be healed. And I still don't know the answers to those things, but what I do know the answers to is that she told me very firmly that night that God is in control and that God has got his hand in every piece of this, and that God has a reason for her to be alive at that point. So over the course of 2 days after that, we baptized 3 of my cousins, all because of my mother. She called them over, and even though she could hardly speak, we baptized all 3 of them because I sat there and witnessed to them. Now, when I got off the phone with Cassandra and I asked my mom and I tried to find out where she was, she told me, "Son, God told me that you were going to preach." And she said, "I told Michael about that before he came, or when he came over to visit earlier today." She said, "Call him and ask him." So after this conversation with me and my mom, I spent about an hour on the phone with Michael that night talking to him about what was said. I never thought I would preach. I don't think I'll ever pursue a full-time pulpit ministry. But nonetheless, some of the things that she said have become true. So her last part was letting me know, I am aware of what's going on, but I've got work to do, and I'm going to use you as my instrument through God to get people to come to Christ. And at that moment, I had my fully, complete, 100%, no lack, no doubt moment of faith. Because when my mom told me what she did, I can only tell you what I went through, and you don't have to believe it, but it was as real as can be. The only thing I can describe it as is when my mom was explaining to me that there are still things left to do and that she knows she is not fearful because she knows God is in control, He's at the wheel, and she's going to be healed one way or another. And He just started opening to me. I can't even describe it. It was pictures in all directions. Pictures 360 degrees underneath me. I'm in the center of a sphere. And He's highlighting pictures to me, almost like in the Matrix, of very specific moments of my life and how things tied together, how I got brought to where I am, and why my mom is passing, and the good things that are going to come from that, even though it's not fun for us to go through that. All of the things that we're going to learn, all of the things that we're going to do to become closer, and that legacy of faith that she left, and how hard we will work to keep that going in our lives for our children and then for our children's children. And I can tell you, that moment, the Holy Spirit took me over, and I sat there and witnessed to my cousin, and she did the work on the other 2. I didn't even have to do anything. I just took their confession. But she witnessed God completely take me over, and I wouldn't say I was speaking in tongues. It was all rational English, but I don't recall, nor did I have anything prepared or set up to say. But I can just tell you, whatever it was powerful enough for a 21-year-old young lady who knows about God but never goes to church to commit her life to God that day, and has since, as I've kept in contact with her. That was my moment of clarity. That was the final straw that took away any doubt that I have that my Father is in control. He is real. There's not a 98.5% chance that He exists, and there's a 1.5% chance that we're just doing this for no good reason. He's real. Folks, we all got to get there. Because if we believe that He's real, and we believe what's in this Word, and we believe that wisdom begins with the fear of Him, folks, our lives look radically different. I say radically. I don't mean a little. I don't mean a little at all. We don't look different enough from the world. Y'all have heard me talk about this many times. We don't look different enough from the world. And I'm going to run out of time, so I'm not going to go on a tirade about this. But I tell you to go home, to re-examine yourselves, look at your lives, and find out, am I different? What about me is different? Do I dwell every day in the Spirit of the Lord? Do I take Him into my heart? Do I listen to Him? Do I pray to Him? And do I stay in constant communion to where I know I'm in His grip and I am walking in His will, and He is going to protect me if I take a misstep, and He is going to redirect me, and everything is going to be good. Doesn't mean it won't be without pain. It doesn't mean that it won't be without difficulty. But folks, if we really get it, He's all that matters anyways. The attachments that we have to this world, whether it's worshiping our families, worshiping our careers, God gave us all of that as gifts. But God is the only answer. God is the only one that's going to give us eternal life. That relationship with Him has to come before your relationship with your spouse. It has to come before your relationship with your kids. And when I had that moment that night with my mom, when we talked, that is one of the things that was just gut-piercing to me, is I realized I love the Lord, but I was loving the Lord on the same plane as I was my kids and my wife. That's sinful. That's showing a lack of understanding, for sure. So I want each of us to look within ourselves. I challenge you to look at your lives. Whether young or old, it is never too late to make a change. Look at yourselves, determine, am I constantly connected to God? It does not take much, folks. It does not take much. Silent prayer while you're going through your day. Talk to Him. Talk to your daddy. He is always there. He's always ready to hear you. If we take it to that level, if we stay in communion with Him, it changes our lives. It changes the way that we behave at work. It changes the way that we come home and start the tempo of the night for the family. It changes the way that we treat our cousins or brothers or sisters that we don't talk to that much. It changes the way that we treat one another here at church. It changes everything. So that's my challenge for today.